The transport vessel shuddered as another plasma bolt scraped across its hull. Marcus Chen gripped the emergency handle tighter, his knuckles white against the cold metal. Around him, the cargo bay was chaos. Crates had broken loose from their magnetic locks and tumbled through the air in the failing gravity system. Emergency lights flickered red, then orange, then red again. He wasn't supposed to be here. Marcus was just a security contractor, hired to guard a shipment of medical supplies heading to the Outer Rim colonies. Easy money, they'd said. A milk run, they'd promised. Nobody mentioned raiders. Nobody mentioned the Korthak syndicate patrolling this sector like hungry wolves. The ship lurched violently to port. Marcus heard screaming from the passenger section, high-pitched and terrified. His training kicked in before his brain could catch up. He released the handle and pushed himself through the tilting corridor, using the wall rails to pull himself forward. The artificial gravity was down to maybe 20% now, making every movement feel like swimming through thick water. When he reached the passenger bay, his heart stopped. The section had depressurized partially. Emergency foam had sealed the breach, but the damage was done. 3 of the crew lay motionless near the hull, but it was the cluster of small figures huddled in the corner that made Marcus's blood run cold. They were Velari children, 7 of them, maybe 8. Their scaled skin shimmered with fear patterns, colors shifting rapidly from blue to purple to deep crimson. The eldest couldn't have been more than 6 cycles old. Velari aged differently than humans, but Marcus had served alongside their kind long enough to recognize terror when he saw it. The children's guardian, a tall Velari female with elaborate head crests, was slumped against the wall. A metal beam had pinned her leg. She was conscious but fading, her breathing shallow. When she saw Marcus, her eyes widened with something between hope and desperation. "Human," she whispered in accented standard. "Please, the hatchlings. They are scholars. Gifted ones. They must reach the academy." Marcus didn't hesitate. He moved to the beam, assessing its weight and position. Too heavy to lift normally, even in low gravity. He looked around frantically and spotted a hydraulic jack near the maintenance hatch. The ship shook again, harder this time. They had minutes, maybe less. "Hold on," he told the guardian. He retrieved the jack and positioned it carefully. The children watched him with huge, multifaceted eyes. One of the smallest ones was crying, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. As Marcus worked the jack, the ship's intercom crackled to life. The captain's voice was strained. "All hands abandon ship protocol initiated. Proceed to escape pods immediately. This is not a drill." The beam lifted. The guardian gasped and tried to pull her leg free, but it was crushed badly. She wouldn't make it to the pods. She knew it. Marcus knew it. "Take them," she said, gripping Marcus's arm with surprising strength. Her claws dug into his sleeve. "Please, human. They are the future of my people. The gifted ones appear once in a generation. You must save them." Marcus looked at the 7 small faces staring at him, then at the guardian, then at the corridor leading to the escape pods. The math was simple and horrible. The pods were designed for 4 people each. The nearest pod bay had 2 pods left according to the flashing display panel. He could maybe fit all the children if he really packed them in, but that meant leaving the guardian behind. That meant leaving others behind. Another explosion rocked the ship. The lights went out completely for 3 full seconds. When they came back, they were dimmer. The ship was dying. Marcus made his choice. He scooped up the smallest child, who weighed almost nothing in the low gravity. "Everyone grab onto me or each other," he ordered the others. "We're moving fast and we're not stopping." The children obeyed instantly, latching onto his legs, his arms, his equipment belt. They moved like a single organism, trusting this strange human completely because their guardian had commanded it. Marcus pushed off toward the corridor, dragging his living cargo behind him. "Wait," the guardian called weakly. "Human, what is your name?" "Marcus Chen," he shouted back, not stopping. "Marcus Chen," she repeated, her voice fading. "The Velari will remember. We will remember." The journey to the pod bay felt like kilometers, though it was probably less than 50 meters. Marcus's muscles screamed. The children clung to him like barnacles, their small claws finding purchase in his clothes, his gear, even his skin. He didn't care. He just moved, hand over hand, rail to rail, pushing through the dying ship. They reached Pod Bay C just as the main power failed. Emergency batteries kicked in with a weak hum. One pod was already gone, its bay door open to space. The other pod's door was sealed but functional. Marcus practically threw the children inside, counting heads as they tumbled in. 7, All of them. Good. He squeezed in after them and slammed his fist on the emergency launch button. Nothing happened. He hit it again, harder. Still nothing. The launch mechanism was damaged or without power. They were trapped in a metal coffin attached to a dying ship. The oldest child, a female with silver-edged scales, pulled at his sleeve. "The manual override," she said, pointing to a panel near the floor. "Requires 2 hands simultaneous pressure, smart kid." Marcus dropped to the floor and found the panel. Inside were 2 large red buttons positioned far apart, too far for one person to reach comfortably. He spread himself across the pod floor, stretching until his shoulders popped. His left hand found one button. His right found the other. "Hold on to something," he grunted. He pressed both buttons simultaneously. The pod's explosive bolts detonated with a sound like thunder in a bottle. The pod shot away from the dying transport vessel so fast that Marcus's vision grayed at the edges. The children tumbled and screamed, but their bodies were flexible and durable. They'd survived the rough launch. Through the pod's small viewport, Marcus watched the transport vessel explode in a bloom of white fire. Debris scattered in all directions. Somewhere in that expanding cloud of metal and flame was the guardian who had trusted him. Were the other crew members? Were people he'd shared meals with just hours ago? The children went silent, watching the destruction. The smallest one was still holding onto Marcus's leg, trembling. He reached down and awkwardly patted the small head, unsure of Velari customs but knowing that comfort was universal. "We're safe now," he said quietly. "The pod's beacon is active. Someone will find us." The silver-scaled girl looked at him with ancient eyes in a young face. "You are Marcus Chen," she said. It wasn't a question. "The human who saves hatchlings." "I'm just a guard who did his job," Marcus replied. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. His job had been to guard cargo. These children weren't cargo. He'd made a choice that would follow him for the rest of his life. The pod drifted through the black, its beacon pulsing steadily into the void. Inside, a human and 7 Velari children floated in the darkness, waiting for rescue. None of them knew that this moment, this choice, would change everything. That the debt one species owed another would be paid in ways none of them could imagine. All Marcus knew was that he was tired, the children were safe, and somewhere out in the dark, help was coming. It had to be coming. The rescue ship arrived 16 hours later. By then, the children had exhausted the emergency rations, and Marcus had told them every story he could remember from his childhood. Earth stories about brave knights and clever foxes, stories his grandmother had told him in Mandarin that he translated badly into Standard. The children listened with rapt attention, their colors shifting to calm blues and soft greens. When the rescue vessel's docking clamp attached to their pod with a metallic thunk, the oldest girl touched Marcus's arm. "We will not forget you," she said solemnly. The others nodded in agreement, their scales rippling with color patterns Marcus was beginning to recognize as gratitude. The rescue team was professional and efficient. They were from the Velari merchant fleet, alerted by the pod's distress beacon. The crew members who opened the hatch froze when they saw Marcus surrounded by the children. Then they moved with urgent purpose, speaking rapidly in their native language, carefully extracting each child and checking them for injuries. A tall Velari male with ceremonial markings on his crest approached Marcus. His eyes were the color of deep ocean water. "I am Captain Cesareth." "You are the human who saved the gifted ones." Marcus nodded tiredly. "I'm Marcus Chen. I was security on the transport. We were attacked. We recovered debris from the Korthak's weapon signatures," Cesareth said. "There were no other survivors. Only you and the children." His voice carried weight, meaning, "Do you understand what you have done, Marcus Chen?" "I did what anyone would do," Marcus replied. He was so tired, his body ached from the cramped pod, his mind fuzzy from lack of sleep and too much adrenaline crash. "No," Cesareth said firmly, "not anyone. Most would have taken the pod for themselves. You risked everything for children not of your species. This is a debt the Velari do not take lightly." Marcus wanted to argue, to say it wasn't a big deal, but the weight of those multifaceted eyes stopped him. This was important to them. Cultural. He'd served with enough alien species to know when to shut up and accept gratitude. "I'm just glad they're safe," he said finally. Captain Cesareth inclined his head. "We are traveling to Velari Prime. You will accompany us. The Council of Elders will wish to thank you properly." It wasn't a request. Marcus was too exhausted to argue anyway. He let the crew guide him to medical bay where they treated his cuts and bruises. The Velari medical officer clucked disapprovingly at his torn muscles and depleted electrolyte levels. She gave him something that tasted like mint and metal, and within minutes his body stopped screaming at him. The journey to Velari Prime took 3 days. During that time, Marcus learned more about the children he'd saved. They were called the Gifted Ones, individuals born with exceptional cognitive abilities and pattern recognition skills. In Velari society, they were considered sacred, destined to become scientists, engineers, and philosophers who would advance their entire species. The 7 he'd rescued represented the entire generation of Gifted Ones from 3 colony worlds. If they had died, one of the crew members explained, our people would have lost decades of potential advancement. Maybe more. You saved our future, human. Marcus didn't know how to process that. He just kept seeing the Guardian's face, her desperate plea. Take them, he'd taken them. Simple as that. Velari Prime was beautiful. The planet glowed blue and green from orbit, with vast oceans and archipelago chains that sparkled like jewels. The cities were built both above and below water, connected by crystalline tubes that refracted light in stunning patterns. As their ship descended, Marcus pressed his face to the viewport like a child, watching the alien landscape unfold below. The spaceport was enormous, easily 10 times the size of anything on Earth's colonies. Ships of every design and species clustered around the docking towers like schools of metal fish. Captain Cesareth's vessel was given priority clearance, sliding into a berth reserved for diplomatic vessels. This is really not necessary, Marcus protested as they prepared to disembark. I'm just a contractor. I need to get back to finding work. That can wait, Cesareth said. The elders have called a gathering. You will attend. The city beyond the spaceport took Marcus's breath away. Buildings rose like coral formations, their surfaces shifting colors in the sunlight. Waterways crisscrossed the streets, and Velari citizens moved with fluid grace along walkways and swimming channels. Many stopped to stare at Marcus, their colors shifting with curiosity. The children traveled with them in a secured transport, carefully guarded by both Velari security and, to Marcus's surprise, 3 human soldiers wearing Alliance military uniforms. One of them, a woman with lieutenant's bars and sharp eyes, introduced herself. Lieutenant Sarah Reeves, Alliance Diplomatic Corps, she said, extending her hand. You've caused quite a stir, Mr. Chen. The Velari contacted Earth's embassy directly. Apparently, you're about to become very important. I don't want to be important, Marcus said honestly. I just want to make sure the kids are okay and then get back to my life. Reeves smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I don't think that's going to be possible. You saved the Gifted Ones. Do you understand what that means politically? The Velari have been neutral in most galactic conflicts for centuries. They trade with everyone but ally with no one. What you did might change that equation. Marcus felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. He hadn't thought about politics. He just thought about 7 scared children and a dying Guardian's request. The transport stopped before a massive building that seemed to grow directly from the bedrock. Water cascaded down its sides in controlled waterfalls that fed into pools at its base. Velari citizens gathered in crowds outside, their colors flashing in patterns Marcus was beginning to associate with excitement and reverence. The Hall of Convergence, Captain Cesareth announced, where the elders meet, where history is decided. They were escorted inside through passages lined with living coral and bioluminescent plants. The air was humid and smelled of salt and ozone. Marcus's clothes stuck to his skin, but the Velari around him seemed comfortable, their scales glistening with moisture. The main chamber was circular and vast, with a domed ceiling that showed the sky above through some kind of transparent material. Water channels ran in geometric patterns across the floor, and at the center, on a raised platform, sat 7 elderly Velari. Their scales were duller than the younger ones, marked with age and wisdom, but their eyes were bright and alert. The 7 children Marcus had saved stood to one side, surrounded by what he assumed were their families. When they saw him, they all brightened visibly, their colors shifting to warm golds and vibrant greens. The smallest one waved enthusiastically. One of the elders rose. She was ancient, her movements careful but dignified. When she spoke, her voice carried through the chamber without amplification. Marcus, Chen of Earth, you stand before the elders of Velari Prime. You have been summoned to receive the gratitude Of our people for an act of selfless courage, she paused, her gaze sweeping across him. But first we would hear your account. Tell us why you saved the gifted ones when you could have saved yourself. Marcus swallowed hard. Hundreds of eyes watched him, both Velari and the handful of humans from the embassy. Lieutenant Reeves gave him an encouraging nod. Captain Cesareth stood tall beside him. I didn't really think about it, Marcus began, his voice sounding small in the huge chamber. Their guardian was hurt. She asked me to save them. They were just kids, terrified and alone. I couldn't leave them. He paused, searching for words. Where I come from on Earth, we have a saying. It takes a village to raise a child. I think it takes a galaxy to protect them. These children, your gifted ones, they're not just your future. They're everyone's future. We're all traveling through space together. All of us different species trying to survive and thrive. If we can't protect each other's children, what's the point of any of it? Silence filled the chamber. Marcus wondered if he'd said something wrong, violated some cultural taboo. The elders looked at each other, their colors shifting through patterns too complex for him to read. Then the ancient elder spoke again. Marcus Chen, you have spoken wisdom that many of our own people have forgotten. You have reminded us that strength is measured not in what we keep for ourselves, but in what we give to others. For this and for saving our most precious treasures, the Velari offer you a gift. She gestured, and two younger Velari approached carrying a crystalline case. Inside was a medallion that seemed to pulse with its own light, its surface etched with intricate patterns. This is the Protector's mark, the elder said. It has been given only 17 times in our 5,000-year history. You are the first human to receive it. It marks you as a brother to our people. Any Velari who sees this will know you saved the gifted ones. They will offer you aid, shelter, and friendship wherever you travel. And when you have need, you may call upon us and we will answer. Marcus accepted the medallion with shaking hands. It was warm to the touch and surprisingly light. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Say you will remember us, the smallest child called out, her voice piping clear across the chamber. Say we are friends. Marcus smiled, his eyes suddenly burning. Always, he promised. We're friends, always. Rust that Marcus realized was Velari applause. The children rushed forward. Forward, surrounding him in a mass of small bodies and joyful colors. Marcus found himself laughing, overwhelmed by their enthusiasm and innocence. He didn't know it yet, but this moment would define the rest of his life. The medallion around his neck was more than a gift. It was a bond, a promise, and a burden. The Velari never forgot their debts, and they never. 3 years had passed since the ceremony on Velari Prime. Marcus Chen sat in a grimy bar on Station Helix 9, nursing a drink that tasted like industrial solvent mixed with fruit juice. The Protector's mark hung heavy around his neck, tucked beneath his shirt where most people wouldn't see it. He'd learned quickly that being famous was exhausting. After the ceremony, everything changed. Job offers flooded in from corporations, governments, even private military contractors willing to pay ridiculous sums for the man who saved the gifted ones. Marcus turned them all down. He didn't want to be a symbol or a propaganda tool. He just wanted to work, earn honest pay, and maybe find some peace. That peace had been elusive. The Velari kept their promise. Everywhere Marcus went, if there were Velari present, they treated him like royalty. Free meals, priority docking, deep discounts on supplies. It was generous but also uncomfortable. He hadn't saved those children for rewards. He'd done it because it was right. Now he worked freelance security and occasional transport jobs, moving from station to station, trying to stay busy enough that he didn't have time to think about the guardian who'd died, or the crew members who hadn't made it to the pods. Survivor's guilt, the counselor had called it. Marcus called it Tuesday. His communicator buzzed. He glanced at it and groaned. Another message from Lieutenant Reeves. She'd been persistent over the years, regularly checking in, offering opportunities to work with the Alliance. Marcus appreciated her consistency, but wasn't interested in military life again. He'd done his tour. He was done taking orders. You look like someone killed your dog and then sent you the bill, a voice said from his right. Marcus looked up. A woman had taken the stool beside him. She was human, maybe early 30s, with oil-stained hands and dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her coveralls marked her as a mechanic, and she had the kind of tired eyes that came from too many double shifts keeping failing equipment running. Don't have a dog, Marcus replied, and I'm not looking for company. Good, because I'm not offering. She flagged the bartender and ordered something called a nebula twist. I'm looking for answers. You're Marcus Chen, right? The protector? Marcus's hand instinctively went to the medallion hidden under his shirt. Depends who's asking. Riley Brooks, head mechanic for the independent freighter Stellar Wanderer. She pulled out a data pad and slid it across the bar. My crew and I are in a situation. We need someone with connections. Someone the Velari trust. Someone who can get us through their space without being blown to atoms. Marcus picked up the data pad. It showed star charts, trade routes, and a lot of red warning markers. This is a dead zone. 3 pirate groups, 2 corporate blockades, and a Velari patrol sector that's been closed to non-allied traffic for 6 months. You want to fly through this? Need to, not want to, Riley corrected. She took a drink, winced at the taste, and continued. We're carrying medical supplies for a colony that got hit by plague. New strain, nasty stuff. The long routes would take 3 weeks. By then, half the colony will be dead. The Velari route cuts the time to 6 days. So get Alliance clearance or hire a Velari transport, Marcus suggested. Already tried. Alliance says it's not worth the diplomatic complications. Velari transporters won't take the job because the destination colony has a trade dispute with one of their partner worlds. Red tape and politics while people die. Riley's voice was bitter, but a ship accompanied by someone wearing a protector's mark? That might get through. Marcus studied her. She was desperate but not stupid. Her plan could actually work. The Velari respected the protector's mark enough that they might grant passage. But it was still dangerous, still pushing boundaries that might have political consequences. Why should I care? Marcus asked. I don't know you. I don't know your crew. And I definitely don't want to get involved in colony politics. Riley met his eyes steadily. Because there are children in that colony. Lots of them. And they're dying from something preventable if we can just get them the medicine in time. She paused. You saved Velari kids. These are human kids. Don't they deserve the same chance? The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He thought about the smallest child in the escape pod, the one who'd clung to his leg while the transport exploded. He thought about the Guardian's last words. He thought about how he'd spent 3 years running from being a hero because it felt like a lie when he couldn't save everyone. That's a low blow, he said quietly. I know, but I'm desperate and you're my only option. Riley finished her drink and stood. My ship is in Dock 47. We launch in 8 hours with or without you. But with you, we might actually make it. Those kids might actually live. She left the data pad on the bar and walked away. Marcus watched her go, then looked down at the star charts glowing on the screen. 6 days through hostile space. Probably a dozen ways it could go wrong. And at the end, a colony full of sick children who needed help. He finished his drink, left payment on the bar, and headed to Dock 47. The Stellar Wanderer was not impressive. She was a beat-up Corinthian-class freighter that had seen better decades. Hull patches covered multiple sections. Her paint was faded, and one of her engine nacelles had been replaced with a different model that didn't quite match. But as Marcus walked around her, he noticed the important details. The reactor housing was new. The weapon systems, while old, were well maintained. The cargo bay doors sealed properly with fresh hydraulics. This was a ship held together by skill and determination. Riley's skill, he guessed. He found her in the engine room, elbow deep in a power coupling. 2 other crew members worked nearby, a grizzled older man and a young woman who couldn't have been more than 20. They all looked up when Marcus entered. You came, Riley said, surprise evident in her voice. I'm an idiot, Marcus replied. But yeah, I came. Let's talk terms. They gathered in the small galley. The older man was Jack, the pilot. The young woman was Terry, who handled navigation and communications. The rest of the crew was scattered around the station gathering last-minute supplies. Here's the deal, Marcus said, spreading out the star charts. The Velari patrol sector is here. We'll need to broadcast my credentials before we enter. Request safe passage under the Protector's right. That's an actual thing in Velari law. They'll scan us, verify the mark's authenticity, and then we'll have a 12-hour window to transit their space. What if they say no? Jack asked. Then we turn around and find another way, Marcus said firmly. I won't start a diplomatic incident over this. But I don't think they'll refuse. The Velari take their debts seriously. Riley studied the charts. The pirate zones are a bigger problem. These groups don't care about medals or politics. They'll attack anything that looks profitable. Our cargo isn't profitable to them, Terry pointed out. Medical supplies have low resale value. We're not worth the ammunition. Unless they're just in it for the violence, Jack countered. Some of these groups are Korthax remnants. They shoot first and don't bother with questions. The mention of the Korthax made Marcus's jaw tighten. They were the ones who'd attacked the transport 3 years ago. The ones who'd killed the Guardian and so many others. He still saw their ships sometimes in nightmares. We'll run dark and fast through the danger zones, Marcus decided. Minimal emissions, maximum speed. Most pirates won't chase a target that isn't broadcasting wealth. And if they do, he paused. Do you have weapons? 2 railguns and a missile pod with 4 shots, Riley said. Not much, but enough to make someone think twice. Hopefully we won't need them. Marcus looked around at the small crew. You all understand what we're doing here? This isn't legal or sanctioned. If something goes wrong, there's no cavalry coming to rescue us. We understand, Riley said. The others nodded. Then let's save some kids. The next 8 hours were a blur of preparation. Marcus sent coded messages to Velari contacts, formally requesting passage and invoking the Protector's right. He received confirmation from Captain Cesarith himself, now an admiral in the Velari fleet. The message was brief but warm. Safe travels, friend. The path will be clear. The Stellar Wanderer launched on schedule, her aging engines humming with surprising power. Riley really was a talented mechanic. Marcus watched from the co-pilot seat as Jack navigated them away from the station and into open space. First jump in 10 minutes, Jack announced. Course set for the outer marker. From there, it's 3 more jumps to Velari space. Marcus settled back and tried to relax. He couldn't. Every system alert made him tense. Every flicker on the sensors drew his attention. He was back in the transport ship listening to alarms, feeling the hull shudder under weapons fire. Hey, Riley's voice came over the intercom from engineering. You okay up there? Fine, Marcus lied. You abandoned their protectors. Marcus Chen had saved 7 children. In doing so, he had earned the loyalty of an entire species. And in the years to come, that loyalty would be tested in ways none of them could possibly imagine. The colony of New Haven looked worse than Marcus had imagined. From orbit, he could see the settlement clustered around a central hub, prefabricated buildings arranged in neat rows that spoke of careful planning. But the streets were empty. No one moved between the structures. No vehicles traveled the roads. It looked like a ghost town. Population is 3,200, Terry read from the data. Mostly mining families. The plague hit them 3 weeks ago. Current mortality rate is climbing. Riley worked beside Marcus in the cockpit while Jack brought them down through the atmosphere. The Velari escort ships held position in orbit, unable to land due to atmospheric incompatibility with their systems, but ready to assist if needed. Landing pad is clear, Jack announced. Taking her down. The Stellar Wanderer settled onto the pad with a groan of stressed metal. Riley winced at the sound. She needs a week in dry dock and about 50,000 credits worth of parts, she muttered. But she got us here. The cargo bay doors opened and Marcus helped offload the medical containers. Each one was marked with bright red crosses and biohazard warnings. The medicine inside was specifically engineered to combat the new plague strain, synthesized by some genius scientist on a research station 3 sectors away. A figure approached from the colony buildings. He wore a medical suit, the kind with full environmental seals. When he reached them, he pulled back his hood to reveal a tired, gaunt face. He couldn't have been more than 40, but he looked 70. I'm Dr. Aaron Walsh, he said. His voice was rough. Are you the supply shipment? Please tell me you're the supply shipment. We are, Riley confirmed. 10 crates of the antiviral agent, 4 crates of supporting medications, and 2 crates of medical equipment. Everything on your emergency request list. Dr. Walsh's knees actually buckled. He caught himself against a cargo container and just stood there, shoulders shaking. Marcus realized the man was crying. Thank you, Walsh whispered. God, thank you. We've lost 218 people, mostly the elderly and the very young. I've been watching children die unable to do anything. And you're here. You actually came. Marcus helped Riley stack containers onto a hover cart. The Alliance wouldn't send supplies? They said they would. Standard routing, 3-week delivery. I told them we didn't have 3 weeks. They said it was the best they could do. Walsh wiped his eyes. I sent requests to every shipping company. Every independent trader I could find. No one would take the risk. The route was too dangerous, the pay too low. We didn't come for pay, Riley said quietly. Walsh looked at her, then at the crew of the Stellar Wanderer. Why did you come? Because children were dying, Marcus said simply. That's enough reason. Over the next hours, they helped transport the medical supplies to the colony's hospital. It was a converted warehouse, beds crammed in every available space. The sick lay in rows, some unconscious, others moaning weakly. The healthy colonists who served as nurses moved between the beds like ghosts, exhausted beyond measure. A nurse, a young woman with hollow eyes, stopped when she saw Marcus's medallion. It had slipped out from under his shirt during the work. That's a Velari Protector's mark, she said. You're Marcus Chen, the one who saved the gifted ones. Marcus nodded, too tired to deny it. Yeah, that's me. Then you really are a hero, she said. You save people. That's what you do. I try, Marcus admitted. Doesn't always work out. The nurse looked around the hospital at the rows of sick. It worked out today. You got here in time. This medicine will save most of them. Maybe all of them if we're lucky. She touched his arm gently. Thank you for trying. That's all any of us can do. Dr. Walsh administered the first doses personally, starting with the children. Marcus watched from the doorway as the man moved from bed to bed, his movements precise despite his exhaustion. Each injection was accompanied by soft words of comfort. Riley found Marcus and handed him a water bottle. You okay? Just thinking, Marcus said. 3 years ago, I saved 7 children on a transport ship. It changed everything, made me famous, made me uncomfortable. I spent 3 years running from that moment, and now I'm watching this doctor save hundreds of lives and nobody's going to give him a medal. Nobody's going to make him famous. He's just going to keep doing his job because it's what needs to be done. Marcus took a drink. Maybe being a hero isn't about the big moments. Maybe it's about showing up when people need help. Riley smiled. That's unusually philosophical for a security contractor. Former security contractor, Marcus corrected. I believe we discussed a job offer? We did. Standard pay, shared quarters, and you work maintenance when we're not being shot at. Deal? Deal. They shook on it and Marcus felt something settle in his chest, a sense of belonging he hadn't felt since before the transport explosion. The Stellar Wanderer wasn't much to look at and her crew was small, but they were good people trying to do good work. That was enough. Over the next 2 days, the colony began to recover. The medicine worked even better than expected. The mortality rate dropped to 0 within 24 hours. Patients began waking up, asking for food, asking for their families. The hospital that had been a place of death became a place of healing. Dr. Walsh threw a small celebration dinner for the crew of the Stellar Wanderer. It was held in the colony's central hall, with what little food they could spare prepared as a feast. Colonists came to thank them personally, shaking their hands, hugging them, crying tears of gratitude. A small girl, maybe 6 years old, approached Marcus shyly. She had been one of the sickest patients, unconscious when they'd arrived. Now she was awake, pale but alive. Are you really the protector? She asked. Marcus knelt down to her level. That's what some people call me. My daddy said you saved alien children from space pirates. Did you really? I saved them from an attack, yes. They were scared just like you were scared. The girl thought about this seriously. I was scared. I thought I was going to die. But then you brought the medicine. She hugged him suddenly, fiercely. Thank you for saving me. Marcus held the small body carefully, feeling tears prick his eyes. You're welcome, sweetheart. You're very welcome. When the girl ran back to her parents, Riley was watching him with an odd expression. You're good with kids. Wouldn't have guessed that about a tough security guy. I had a little sister, Marcus said quietly. She died when I was 18. Shuttle accident. I couldn't save her. He paused. Maybe that's why I can't walk away when children are in danger. I keep trying to save her over and over. Riley didn't offer empty comfort or platitudes. She just nodded. Everyone's got ghosts. At least you're using yours to do good. That night, Marcus stood outside the colony under alien stars. New Haven's sun was smaller than Earth's, and the sky was a different shade of purple-black. But the stars were the same, scattered across the darkness in patterns that connected every world. He heard footsteps and turned to find Jack approaching. The old pilot lit a hand-rolled cigarette and offered one to Marcus, who declined. Been meaning to ask, Jack said. Why'd you really join up with us? Riley's a good mechanic, but there are 1,000 ships out there looking for security. Some of them pay better and don't fly through war zones. Marcus considered the question. I spent 3 years running from being the protector. Kept thinking if I just moved enough, worked enough different jobs, I could go back to being nobody special. Just Marcus Chen, regular guy. But, Jack prompted. But I realized something today. I don't want to be nobody. I want to matter. I want to help people. He touched the medallion around his neck. The Velari gave me this because I saved their children. But I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because it was right. And maybe that's what being a protector really means. Not having a medal or a title, but choosing to help when you can. Jack took a long drag on his cigarette. Riley's going to work you to death, you know. She'll have you rewiring panels and cleaning coolant filters in addition to security work. Good, I need to be busy. Need to be useful. You and Riley are a lot alike, Jack observed. Both running from something. Both trying to do good to make up for things you couldn't control. He paused. She doesn't talk about it much, but she lost her family in a colony raid when she was young. Pirates hit the settlement, killed everyone except her and a few others. She was hiding in a maintenance shaft when it happened. That's why she became a mechanic. That's why she helps colonies in trouble. Marcus looked back at the colony hall where Riley was helping clean up from the dinner. We're all trying to save people we lost, he said softly. Yep, but that's not a bad thing. Jack stubbed out his cigarette. The galaxy needs more people who care. Who show up when it matters. You and Riley, you're good people. Don't lose that. The next morning, the Stellar Wanderer prepared for departure. Dr. Walsh came to see them off, looking years younger now that his patients were recovering. I can't pay you, he said apologetically. The colony's funds are almost gone. It'll be months before we can afford to compensate you properly. We don't need payment, Riley said. But if you want to do something for us, spread the word. Tell other colonies that there are independent crews willing to help when no one else will. Tell them not every ship is run by corporations that only care about profit. Walsh smiled. I can do that. And I'll make sure Earth Command knows what you did. Maybe it won't change anything, but it should be on record. The crew boarded their ship and the Stellar Wanderer lifted off smoothly. Riley had worked miracles overnight, patching the worst damage and getting systems back online. They'd need a proper repair dock eventually, but the ship was space-worthy. As they climbed toward orbit, Terry picked up a transmission. It's from the Velari escort ships. Admiral Cesarith wants to speak with you, Marcus. Cesarith's face appeared on the screen. His colors were warm and approving. Marcus Chen, you continue to honor the Protector's mark. The Velari watched as you delivered medicine to a colony in need, expecting nothing in return. This is the spirit of the Protector. I had help, Marcus said, gesturing to include the crew. Riley and her people are the ones who made this possible. I just came along for the ride. Then they too are worthy of recognition. Cesarith paused. I have a proposal for you and the crew of the Stellar Wanderer. The Velari Council has authorized me to offer you a contract. We need transporters we can trust, who will carry medical supplies and aid to colonies throughout this sector. The pay is modest but steady, and you will have the full protection of the Velari fleet when needed. Riley's eyes widened. Admiral, that's incredibly generous. It is practical, Cesarith corrected. We have learned from humans that protection means more than military might. It means helping those who cannot help themselves. You have shown this. We would work with you. Marcus looked at Riley, then at Jack and Terry. They were all grinning. We accept, he said, with gratitude. Excellent. You will receive the contract details within the hour. Safe travels, Protector. And to your crew, safe travels as well. The transmission ended. For a moment, the cockpit was silent. Then Terry let out a whoop of joy. Jack laughed, a sound Marcus hadn't heard from the old pilot before, and Riley just shook her head in amazement. We're actually going to make it, she said quietly. The ship, the crew, everything. We're going to be okay. Marcus settled into the co-pilot seat feeling something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Real, solid hope that the future might be better than the past. Set course for the next station, he said. We've got work to do. The Stellar Wanderer turned toward the stars, her battered hull gleaming in the light of New Haven's sun. Behind her, a colony full of people celebrated life and recovery. Ahead, a galaxy full of problems waited to be solved. But for the first time in a long time, Marcus Chen felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. Not running from his past, but building a future. Not alone, but part of a crew. Not just surviving, but living. The Protector had found his home. And the galaxy was better for it. 6 months passed in a blur of supply runs, repairs, and the slow building of something that felt like family. The Stellar Wanderer became Marcus's home in a way nowhere else had been since Earth. Riley's gruff competence balanced Jack's dry humor, while Terry's endless optimism kept everyone's spirits up during the long hauls between systems. They'd picked up 2 more crew members along the way. Chen, no relation to Marcus despite the shared surname, was a Taiwanese medic who'd gotten tired of corporate medicine. And Kofi, a massive engineer from New Lagos who could lift engine parts that normally required 2 people and a hydraulic assist. The Velari contract kept them busy but not overwhelmed. Medical supplies mostly, but sometimes refugees needing transport or scientists heading to remote research stations. The pay was steady, and the protection of the Velari fleet meant they could fly routes other independent ships couldn't risk. Marcus had settled into a comfortable routine. Security and maintenance during flights, helping Riley with repairs during downtime, occasionally cooking dinner for the crew because everyone agreed his grandmother's recipes were the best thing on the ship. He'd even started teaching Terry some basic self-defense moves, just in case. It was during a routine supply run to Research Station Kepler-7 that everything changed. The station was small, only 40 permanent staff, dedicated to studying exotic particles in a nearby nebula. They needed routine supplies, nothing urgent, which meant the Stellar Wanderer could take her time. Riley wanted to use the station's repair facilities to finally fix the port thruster that had been acting up since the New Haven run. Marcus was helping unload cargo when he heard the argument. 2 voices, one male and angry, one female and frightened. He followed the sound to a service corridor and found a station security officer cornering a young woman against the wall. "I don't care if you're a researcher," the officer was saying. "You missed 3 shifts. That's grounds for contract termination." "My equipment malfunctioned," the woman protested. Her accent was strange, vowels stretched in a way Marcus didn't recognize. "I submitted reports. I followed protocol. Your reports are worthless." "Do you know who I am?" "I run security on this station. What I say goes." Marcus recognized the tone. Bully with a badge. He'd dealt with plenty of them during his military service. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, stepping into the corridor. The security officer turned, irritation flashing across his face. Then he saw Marcus's medallion and went pale. "You're the Protector. I'm Marcus Chen, and I asked if there's a problem." "No problem. Just station business." The officer backed away. "Dr. Okonkwo here missed some shifts. We were discussing her contract." The woman, Okonkwo, was thin and looked exhausted. Her research uniform was stained with chemical residue. "My equipment has been sabotaged," she said quietly. 3 times in the last month. I submitted reports each time, but nothing has been done." "Sabotaged?" Marcus looked at the security officer. "That's a serious accusation." "She can't prove it," the officer said quickly. "Equipment malfunctions happen. This station is old." Something in the man's voice rang false. Marcus had spent enough time around liars to recognize the tells. "Dr. Okonkwo, why would someone sabotage your equipment?" She hesitated, glancing at the security officer, then back to Marcus. "I discovered something. In the nebula. Energy readings that shouldn't be there. I think there's technology hidden in the particle clouds. Old technology. Maybe even alien ruins." "That's speculation," the officer snapped. "Unproven theories that waste station resources." "Have you investigated her sabotage claims?" Marcus asked. "I don't have to answer to you. This is station business." "Fair enough." Marcus turned to Okonkwo. "Come with me. Let's talk somewhere more comfortable." The security officer looked like he wanted to object, but Marcus's hand had drifted to the stun baton on his belt. Not threatening, just ready. The officer backed down, muttering something about duties, and stalked away. Marcus brought Okonkwo to the Stellar Wanderer. Riley looked up from her work on the thruster assembly. "Who's this?" "Dr. Okonkwo. She's got a problem, and I think we can help." Over coffee in the galley, Okonkwo told them her story. She was a xenoarchaeologist, studying ancient civilizations through their technological remnants. Her current research involved scanning the nebula for unusual energy patterns that might indicate artificial structures. 3 weeks ago, I found something, she explained. A structure deep in the nebula's densest region. It's massive, maybe 10 kilometers across. The energy signature doesn't match any known technology. It's old. Really old? How old? Terry asked, fascinated. Conservative estimate? 50,000 years. Maybe more, Riley whistled. That predates most known civilizations. You're talking about something from the age of ancients. Exactly. Okonkwo pulled out a data pad and showed them scans. The images were blurry, obscured by particle interference, but Marcus could make out angular structures that didn't look natural. I submitted my findings to the station director. The next day, my equipment started malfunctioning. Then the security officer began harassing me. Then I received an anonymous message telling me to stop my research or face consequences. Someone doesn't want you finding this structure, Jack observed. Or they want to find it first, Marcus added. Who else knows about your discovery? Just the station director and the head of security. And now you. Riley leaned back in her chair, thinking. Ancient alien ruins are worth a fortune. Collectors, governments, corporations, they'd all pay massive sums for access. If someone wants to keep this quiet, it's probably so they can claim it for themselves. Can you prove the sabotage? Marcus asked. Okonkwo shook her head. Not without access to my equipment. And I'm being watched constantly now. If I try to gather evidence, I'll be caught. Marcus looked at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. This was wrong and they could help. What if you didn't gather the evidence? What if we did? Riley grinned. I like where this is going. Wait, Okonkwo said. You'd help me? You don't even know me. We know enough, Marcus said. Someone's trying to bully you and steal your discovery. That's wrong. So we're going to stop them. It took 2 days to put the plan together. Terry hacked into the station's security feeds and found the blind spots. Kofi created a distraction by claiming he needed urgent parts from the station's engineering bay. And Marcus, wearing maintenance coveralls instead of his usual gear, slipped into Okonkwo's lab while she kept the security officer busy with questions about her contract. The sabotage was obvious once Marcus knew what to look for. Someone had installed signal jammers in her scanning equipment, small devices designed to corrupt data. He found 3 of them, carefully photographed their placement and removed them. More importantly, he found a maintenance log that showed the security officer had accessed the lab multiple times without authorization. Evidence in hand, Marcus returned to the ship. But before they could confront anyone, Terry picked up something on the long-range sensors. We've got company, she announced. Big company. Corporate vessel Helios Dynamics markings. They're heading straight for the nebula. Helios Dynamics, Riley said grimly. They're treasure hunters with a corporate license. If they're here, someone tipped them off about the ruins. Marcus understood immediately. The station director. He sold Okonkwo's discovery to a corporation. That's why they wanted her quiet. What do we do? Terry asked. Marcus looked at Okonkwo. That's your discovery. What do you want to do about it? She stared at the scan showing the Helios ship. Her hands clenched into fists. I want to get there first. I want to document it properly before they strip it for profit. This is history. It belongs to everyone, not just the highest bidder. Then we get you there first, Riley decided. The Wanderer can fly into nebulas if we're careful. It's dangerous, but possible. The Helios ship has better sensors, Jack warned. They'll reach the site faster. Not if we take a shortcut, Terry said, pulling up navigation charts. There's a dense region here that most ships avoid. Too much interference. But if we fly dark and follow a vector based on Dr. Okonkwo's original readings, we can cut their travel time in half. Riley studied the charts. That region will cook our sensors. We'll be flying blind. I can navigate it, Okonkwo said. I've been studying those particle patterns for months. I know how they move, how they cluster. If you trust me, I can guide us through. Marcus looked around at his crew. This was risky, possibly illegal depending on salvage laws, and definitely going to make enemies. But it was also right. Okonkwo deserved to study her discovery. History deserved to be documented, not plundered. We trust you, he said. Riley, get us ready to fly. Jack, plot the course, Terry calculated. Everyone else secure for rough navigation. We're going into the nebula. The Stellar Wanderer detached from the station without alerting traffic control. By the time the station director realized they were gone, they were already diving into the nebula's outer layers. The ship shuddered as particle density increased, and the viewports turned opaque with swirling colors. Sensors are useless, Terry confirmed. We're flying blind. 15 degrees port, Okonkwo called from her position at the science station. There's a clear channel through this density layer. Follow it for 800 kilometers, then we'll need to adjust. Jack obeyed, trusting her completely. The ship. He'd even started teaching Terry some basic self-defense moves just in case. It was during a routine supply run to Research Station Kepler 7 that everything changed. The station was small, only 40 permanent staff dedicated to studying exotic particles in a nearby nebula. They needed routine supplies. Nothing urgent, which meant the Stellar Wanderer could take her time. Riley wanted to use the station's repair facilities to finally fix the port thruster that had been acting up since the New Haven run. Marcus was helping unload cargo when he heard the argument. Two voices, one male and angry, one female and frightened. He followed the sound to a service corridor and found a station security officer cornering a young woman against the wall. "I don't care if you're a researcher," the officer was saying. "You missed 3 shifts. That's grounds for contract termination." "My equipment malfunctioned," the woman protested. Her accent was strange. Vowels stretched in a way Marcus didn't recognize. "I submitted reports. I followed protocol. Your reports are worthless. Do you know who I am? I run security on this station. What I say goes." Marcus recognized the tone. Bully with a badge. He'd dealt with plenty of them during his military service. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, stepping into the corridor. The security officer turned, irritation flashing across his face. Then he saw Marcus's medallion and went pale. "You're the protector. I'm Marcus Chen, and I asked if there's a problem." "No problem. Just station business." The officer backed away. "Dr. Okonkwo here missed some shifts. We were discussing her contract." The woman, Okonkwo, was thin and looked exhausted. Her research uniform was stained with chemical residue. "My equipment has been sabotaged," she said quietly. 3 times in the last month. I submitted reports each time, but nothing has been done." "Sabotaged?" Marcus looked at the security officer. "That's a serious accusation." "She can't prove it," the officer said quickly. "Equipment malfunctions happen. This station is old." Something in the man's voice rang false. Marcus had spent enough time around liars to recognize the tells. "Dr. Okonkwo, why would someone sabotage your equipment?" She hesitated, glancing at the security officer, then back to Marcus. "I discovered something. In the nebula, energy readings that shouldn't be there. I think there's technology hidden in the particle clouds. Old technology, maybe even alien ruins." "That's speculation," the officer snapped. "Unproven theories that waste station resources. Have you investigated her sabotage claims?" Marcus asked. "I don't have to answer to you. This is station business." "Fair enough." Marcus turned to Okonkwo. "Come with me. Let's talk somewhere more comfortable." The security officer looked like he wanted to object, but Marcus's hand had drifted to the stun baton on his belt. Not threatening, just ready. The officer backed down, muttering something about duties, and stalked away. Marcus brought Okonkwo to the Stellar Wanderer. Riley looked up from her work on the thruster assembly. "Who's this?" "Dr. Okonkwo. She's got a problem, and I think we can help." Over coffee in the galley, Okonkwo told them her story. She was a xenoarchaeologist, studying ancient civilizations through their technological remnants. Her current research involves scanning the nebula for unusual energy patterns that might indicate artificial structures. 3 weeks ago I found something, she explained. A structure deep in the nebula's densest region. It's massive, maybe 10 kilometers across. The energy signature doesn't match any known technology. It's old. Really old. How old? Terry asked, fascinated. Conservative estimate? 50,000 years, maybe more. Riley whistled. That predates most known civilizations. You're talking about something from the Age of Ancients. Exactly. Okonkwo pulled out a data pad and showed them scans. The images were blurry, obscured by particle interference, but Marcus could make out angular structures that didn't look natural. I submitted my findings to the station director. The next day, my equipment started malfunctioning. Then the security officer began harassing me. Then I received an anonymous message telling me to stop my research or face consequences. Someone doesn't want you finding this structure, Jack observed. Or they want to find it first, Marcus added. Who else knows about your discovery? Just the station director and the head of security. And now you. Riley leaned back in her chair, thinking. Ancient alien ruins are worth a fortune. Collectors, governments, corporations, they'd all pay massive sums for access. If someone wants to keep this quiet, it's probably so they can claim it for themselves. Can you prove the sabotage? Marcus asked. Okonkwo shook her head. Not without access to my equipment. And I'm being watched constantly now. If I try to gather evidence, I'll be caught. Marcus looked at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. This was wrong and they could help. What if you didn't gather the evidence? What if we did? Riley grinned. I like where this is going. Wait, Okonkwo said. You'd help me? You don't even know me. We know enough, Marcus said. Someone's trying to bully you and steal your discovery. That's wrong, so we're going to stop them. It took 2 days to put the plan together. Terry hacked into the station's security feeds and found the blind spots. Kofi created a distraction by claiming he needed urgent parts from the station's engineering bay. And Marcus, wearing maintenance coveralls instead of his usual gear, slipped into Okonkwo's lab while she kept the security officer busy with questions about her contract. The sabotage was obvious once Marcus knew what to look for. Someone had installed signal jammers in her scanning equipment, small devices designed to corrupt data. He found 3 of them, carefully photographed their placement and removed them. More importantly, he found a maintenance log that showed the security officer had accessed the lab multiple times without authorization. Evidence in hand, Marcus returned to the ship. But before they could confront anyone, Terry picked up something on the long-range sensors. We've got company, she announced. Big company. Corporate vessel. Helios Dynamics markings. They're heading straight for the nebula. Helios Dynamics, Riley said grimly. They're treasure hunters with a corporate license. If they're here, someone tipped them off about the ruins. Marcus understood immediately. The station director. He sold Okonkwo's discovery to a corporation. That's why they wanted her quiet. What do we do? Terry asked. Marcus looked at Okonkwo. That's your discovery. What do you want to do about it? She stared at the scan showing the Helios ship. Her hands clenched into fists. I want to get there first. I want to document it properly before they strip it for profit. This is history. It belongs to everyone, not just the highest bidder. Then we get you there first, Riley decided. The Wanderer can fly into nebulas if we're careful. It's dangerous, but possible. The Helios ship has better sensors, Jack warned. They'll reach the site faster. Not if we take a shortcut, Terry said, pulling up navigation charts. There's a dense region here that most ships avoid. Too much interference. But if we fly dark and follow a vector based on Dr. Okonkwo's original readings, we can cut their travel time in half. Riley studied the charts. That region will cook our sensors. We'll be flying blind. I can navigate it, Okonkwo said. I've been studying those particle patterns for months. I know how they move, how they cluster. If you trust me, I can guide us through. Marcus looked around at his crew. This was risky, possibly illegal depending on salvage laws, and definitely going to make enemies. But it was also right. Okonkwo deserved to study her discovery. History deserved to be documented, not plundered. We trust you, he said. Riley, get us ready to fly. Jack, plot the course Terry calculated. Everyone else secure for rough navigation. We're going into the nebula. The Stellar Wanderer detached from the station without alerting traffic control. By the time the station director realized they were gone, they were already diving into the nebula's outer layers. The ship shuddered as particle density increased, and the viewports turned opaque with swirling colors. Sensors are useless, Terry confirmed. We're flying blind. 15 degrees port, Okonkwo called from her position at the science station. There's a clear channel through this density layer. Follow it for 800 kilometers, then we'll need to adjust. Jack obeyed, trusting her completely. The ship threaded through the nebula like a needle through cloth, following paths only Okonkwo could see in the particle patterns. Hours passed in tense concentration. One wrong turn, one miscalculation, and they'd fly into a density pocket that would tear the ship apart. I've got something on passive sensors, Terry said. Massive metallic signature bearing 030. Distance, 2,000 kilometers. That's it, Okonkwo breathed. We found it. Riley brought the ship around slowly, carefully. As they approached, the particle density thinned enough for visual confirmation. What emerged from the nebula made everyone in the cockpit gasp. It was a city in space suspended in the nebula like a ghost. Towers and structures stretched across kilometers, all connected by bridges and tubes. The architecture was alien, built with geometries that hurt to look at too long, but it was beautiful. Ancient and mysterious and profound. Sweet mercy, Jack whispered. How is it still intact? Riley asked. 50,000 years in a nebula should have destroyed it. The structure generates its own protective field, Okonkwo. The distress call came during the night shift when only Terry and Marcus were awake. The Stellar Wanderer was on a routine supply run between stations, the kind of milk run that let most of the crew catch up on sleep. But the emergency beacon changed everything. It's coming from the frontier belt, Terry said, pulling up coordinates. That's pirate territory. No law, no patrols, just raiders and desperate people. Marcus studied the signal. It was weak, breaking up with interference, but the message was clear. Ship disabled. Life support failing. Requesting immediate assistance. Can you get a ship identification? Working on it. Terry's fingers flew across the console. Got it. It's registered as the Morning Star, family transport vessel. Last port of call was New Brisbane Colony. Passenger manifest shows. Oh no, what? 23 passengers. 17 of them are children. Marcus was already moving. Wake the crew. Plot an intercept course. How long? 3 hours if we push the engines hard. Terry bit her lip. Marcus, this could be a trap. Pirates use fake distress calls all the time to lure in rescue ships. I know. Wake the crew anyway. Riley stumbled into the cockpit 10 minutes later, half-dressed and bleary-eyed. When Marcus explained the situation, she was instantly alert. 3 hours is cutting it close if their life support is really failing. I can push the engines harder, but we're going to burn through fuel reserves. Do it, Marcus said. We'll worry about fuel later. Jack took the pilot seat, his usual calm replaced by grim determination. Kofi and Chen prepared the medical bay for potential casualties. And Riley disappeared into the engine room, coaxing every bit of speed from the aging ship. The Stellar Wanderer flew through the dark at speeds she wasn't designed for. Warning lights flickered on the engineering displays, but Riley's voice came through steady over the intercom. We're holding together. Just keep her straight, Jack. As they approached the coordinates, sensors picked up the Morning Star. She was drifting, no power emissions, hull breached in multiple places. Debris surrounded her in a slowly expanding cloud. I'm reading life signs, Terry confirmed. Faint, but there. They're still alive. Any other ships? Marcus asked. Negative. We're alone out here. That bothered Marcus. If pirates had attacked, where were they? Had they already looted the ship and left? Or were they waiting, watching to see who responded to the distress call? Everyone suit up, he ordered. We're going in prepared for anything. The Stellar Wanderer matched velocity with the Morning Star and extended a docking tube. Marcus, Chen, and Kofi entered first, weapons ready, medical supplies on their backs. The Morning Star's airlock was damaged but functional enough to cycle them through. Inside was chaos. The attack had been brutal and efficient. Blast marks scarred the walls. Blood stained the decks. But Marcus didn't see bodies, which was either very good or very bad. Hello, he called out. This is a rescue team. If anyone can hear us, make noise. A weak banging answered from deeper in the ship. They followed the sound to what had been the passenger lounge. The door was sealed, welded shut from the inside. Someone had barricaded themselves in. Stand back from the door, Marcus called. We're cutting through. Kofi used a plasma torch to slice through the emergency welds. When the door fell away, Marcus found himself staring at 23 terrified faces. Adults and children huddled together in the darkness, wrapped in emergency blankets. They were alive, barely, surviving on emergency oxygen tanks. A woman stepped forward, holding a metal bar like a weapon. Who are you? Marcus Chen, independent freighter Stellar Wanderer. We received your distress call, the woman's legs gave out. She would have fallen if Chen hadn't caught her. Thank God you're real. We thought no one would come. Over the next frantic minutes, they evacuated the survivors. The children were frightened but obedient, following Chen's calm instructions. The adults helped each other, moving slowly in the low oxygen environment. Marcus counted heads compulsively. 23, all accounted for. No one left behind, what happened? He asked the woman who'd confronted him. Her name was Sarah Kimura, and she'd been the ship's first mate. Pirates, she said bitterly. They came out of nowhere, disabled our engines before we could even send a full distress call. Boarded us, took everything valuable, took the captain and the other crew members. Her voice cracked. They were going to take the children too. Sell them to slavers, but I managed to seal this room and set the emergency beacon. The pirates tried to cut through, but our hull breached first. They abandoned us to die. Marcus felt cold fury settle in his chest. Human traffickers. Slavers who targeted children. The worst kind of evil. Did you see their ship? Any identifying marks? Red scorpion painted on the hull. The crew was mixed species, but the captain was human. Called himself Reaver. Riley's voice came through Marcus's comm. We need to move. I'm picking up engine signatures on long-range sensors. Multiple ships heading this way. The pirates, Sarah said, her face going white. They're coming back. Marcus made a decision in seconds. Everyone to the Wanderer now. Move fast but stay calm. We're getting out of here. They hustled the survivors across the docking tube. Riley had the Stellar Wanderer ready to fly. Engines hot, weapons systems active. As soon as the last person was aboard, she disconnected and punched the engines. 3 ships, Terry reported. Pirate signatures. They're hailing us. Put them through, Marcus said. A face appeared on the screen, scarred and grinning. Human, like Sarah had said. Well, someone actually responded to the distress call. You must be either brave or stupid. The man's grin widened. I'm Captain Reaver. That wreck you just looted belongs to me. So do the survivors. Hand them over and maybe I'll let you keep your ship. Here's a counteroffer, Marcus said coldly. You turn around and run and maybe I'll let you keep breathing. Reaver laughed. Big words from a rusty freighter. You've got no weapons that matter. No backup and you're carrying civilians. You can't fight. You can't run fast enough with that much mass. So how about you be reasonable? Marcus pulled his shirt aside, revealing the protector's mark. The medallion gleamed in the cockpit light. You know what this is? Reaver's laughter died. You're the one who saved the Velari brats, so what? That fancy medal doesn't mean anything out here. It means when I call for help, the Velari answer. Marcus leaned forward. And I just sent a priority distress signal. Admiral Cesareth and 3 warships are already en route. They'll be here in 20 minutes. So you've got a choice. Run now while you can, or wait for the Velari to arrive and see what they do to slavers. It was a bluff. Marcus hadn't sent any signal. But Reaver didn't know that. And the Protector's mark was famous enough that the threat seemed credible. You're lying, Reaver said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Am I? You willing to bet your life on it? Marcus smiled without humor. 20 minutes. The clock's ticking. The pirate ships moved closer, weapons charging. For a terrible moment, Marcus thought Reaver would call his bluff. Then one of the other pirate ships broke formation, turning away. Where are you going? Reaver demanded over the comm. We're not tangling with the Velari fleet for a bunch of refugees, another voice answered. You want them that bad, you fight the warships yourself. The second pirate ship followed the first. Reaver's ship held position for another few seconds, then turned and fled. His parting words were venomous. This isn't over, Chen. I don't forget faces. Neither do I, Marcus said quietly to the empty screen. Riley sagged in her pilot seat. That was the worst bluff I've ever seen. What if they'd called it? Then we would have fought, Marcus said simply, and probably died. But at least these people would have had a chance. Sarah Kimura had been listening from the doorway. You would have died for us? For strangers? Not strangers. People who needed help. Marcus looked at the survivors crowded into every available space on the ship. That's what we do. The Stellar Wanderer limped to the nearest safe station, a Velari trading post called Sanctuary Point. The refugees were taken in immediately, given medical care, food, and temporary housing. Sarah Kimura approached Marcus before he left. The pirates took our captain and crew, she said. They're probably being sold at some black market right now. Is there anything that can be done? Marcus thought about it. Maybe I know people. I'll make some calls. He contacted Admiral Cesareth and explained the situation. The Velari admiral listened carefully. Slavery is abhorrent to my people. We will investigate. If these crew members can be found, we will free them. And Reaver? Marcus asked. His name is known to us. He has committed crimes against multiple species. The Velari fleet will hunt him. Cesareth paused. You made an enemy today, Marcus Chen. This pirate captain will seek revenge. Let him come, Marcus said. I'm not hard to find, but the encounter with Reaver left Marcus unsettled. He'd made plenty of enemies over the years, but this felt different. More personal. More dangerous. Reaver wasn't just a criminal. He was a predator who specialized in the helpless. And now Marcus was on his radar. Riley found him in the cargo bay that evening, checking weapon systems. "You're worried," she observed. "I made a threat I couldn't back up. Reaver might have run today, but he'll remember. He'll plan. Next time, he won't fall for a bluff. So we'll be ready next time." Riley sat down beside him. "You know, The attack came without warning. One moment, the Stellar Wanderer was docked at a civilian station for routine maintenance. The next, explosions rocked the docking bay. Alarms screamed. People scattered in panic. Marcus was in the station's market when it happened, buying supplies. The blast wave threw him against a wall. His ears rang. His vision blurred. But training kicked in. He rolled to his feet and ran toward the docks. The Stellar Wanderer was under attack. 3 ships, unmarked but heavily armed, were firing on the docking bay. They weren't trying to destroy the station. They were trying to destroy his ship. Riley's ship. Marcus activated his comm. "Riley, report." Static answered. Then Riley's voice strained. "Marcus, they hit the main power. We're dead in the water. I'm trying to get emergency systems online, but they're coming around for another pass. Get everyone off the ship. We can't, the docking clamp is damaged. We're stuck until I can cut through it manually." Marcus ran faster. He reached the bay just as the attacking ships lined up for another strike. Station security was scrambling, but they were overwhelmed. Dealing with fires and injured civilians, no one could help. He recognized the lead ship's markings. A red Scorpion. Reaver. Marcus grabbed a dock worker. "Emergency defense guns where?" "Platform 7, but they're manual operation only. You need authorization." Marcus shoved past him and sprinted for Platform 7. Authorization could wait. His crew was about to die. The defense platform was a relic, probably decades old. But the guns were functional, loaded, and they had a clear line of sight to the attacking ships. Marcus jumped into the operator seat and powered up the system. Targeting displays flickered to life. Come on," he muttered, waiting for the weapons to charge. The attacking ships were closing in on the Wanderer. He could see Riley through the cockpit window, working frantically. Jack was with her, helping cut through the docking clamp. The others were probably below deck, trapped. Targeting lock achieved. Marcus didn't hesitate. He opened fire. The defense guns were old but powerful. Plasma bolts streaked across the bay and slammed into the lead ship's shields. The pirates broke formation, surprised by the resistance. Good. Marcus gave them something else to worry about. He fired again, targeting engines and weapon systems. One ship took a direct hit and spun away, trailing smoke. The other 2 returned fire, but Marcus's position was protected by station armor. Their shots sparked harmlessly against shields. "Riley, how long?" he demanded over the comm. 30 seconds. The clamp is almost cut. Make it 20. Reaver's voice came over the station-wide channel. "Chen, I knew you'd be here. You cost me a fortune at the black market. Now I'm going to cost you everything you care about." Marcus ignored the taunt and fired again. He hit the second ship's engine and it lurched sideways. But the third ship, Reaver's ship, was moving into position for a kill shot on the Wanderer. Marcus tried to line up a shot, but the angle was wrong. "Riley, get out of there. Now, 10 seconds. Clamp is almost through." Reaver's ship fired. Marcus watched in horror as plasma bolts streaked toward the Wanderer. They were going to hit. There was no time. Then space itself seemed to shimmer. A Velari destroyer dropped out of faster-than-light transit directly between Reaver's ship and the Stellar Wanderer. The plasma bolts splashed harmlessly against military-grade shields. Admiral Cesarith's voice boomed over all frequencies. "This is the Velari warship Radiant Justice. All hostile vessels stand down immediately or be destroyed." Reaver's response was to fire on the destroyer. Big mistake. The Radiant Justice's counterfire was precise and devastating. Reaver's shields collapsed in seconds. His engines exploded. His ship became a drifting wreck, life support failing. The other 2 pirate ships fled immediately. They'd learned from earlier encounters not to challenge Velari warships. Marcus sagged in the operator seat, his hands shaking. They'd come so close. Another few seconds and Riley would have been dead. They all would have been dead. He ran back to the Wanderer. The docking clamp had been cut through and the crew was emerging, shaken but alive. Riley was covered in soot and coolant, her hands bleeding from where she'd cut through the clamp mechanism without proper gloves. But she was grinning. "Nice shooting," she said when she saw Marcus. "Nice cutting," he replied. Then, before he could think about it, he pulled her into a hug. She stiffened for a moment, then hugged back fiercely. Thank you for saving us, she whispered. Thank you for staying alive long enough to save, he answered, Admiral Cesareth transported over personally. His colors were concerned patterns. Marcus Chen, you have a talent for attracting trouble. Are you injured? I'm fine. My crew is fine thanks to you. Marcus gestured at the disabled pirate ship. Reaver's ship is dead in space. Will you take him into custody? We will. He will face justice for his crimes. Cesareth paused. But this attack raises concerns. You have made powerful enemies, Protector. First the corporations angry about the ruins. Now pirates seeking revenge. We cannot protect you everywhere. I'm not asking you to, Marcus said. I can take care of myself, perhaps. But you should not have to. Cesareth's colors shifted to determined patterns. The Velari Council has discussed your situation. We wish to offer you something. What? A ship. A proper ship built for protection and aid work. Armed well enough to defend yourself, fast enough to escape when needed, equipped for rescue operations. Cesareth gestured at the Stellar Wanderer. This vessel has served you well, but she is old and damaged. She cannot keep you safe much longer. Riley stiffened. Marcus knew what she was thinking. The Wanderer was her ship, built with her own hands, her home for a decade. Giving her up would be like losing part of herself. That's incredibly generous, Marcus said carefully. But we can't accept. Why not? Cesareth looked genuinely confused. Because this ship isn't just transportation. It's home. It's family. Every patch, every repair, every system carries memories. Marcus put his hand on the Wanderer's hull. She's gotten us through impossible situations. She's brought medical supplies to dying colonies, refugees to safety, scientists to ancient ruins. She might be old and rusty, but she's ours. Riley was staring at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Jack and the others had gathered around, listening. However, Marcus continued, if the Velari would be willing to help us repair her properly, upgrade her systems, maybe add some better weapons and shields, we would gratefully accept that assistance. We'd still have the Wanderer, just a better version of her. Cesareth's colors shifted to amused patterns. You humans and your attachment to objects. Very well. The Radiant Justice has extensive repair facilities. We will restore your vessel to optimal condition and install modern defensive systems. But I warn you, Marcus Chen, you must be more careful. Next time, we might not arrive in time. How did you arrive in time? Terry asked. We didn't send a distress call. We've been monitoring this sector since Marcus's last encounter with Reaver. When the attack began, our sensors detected it immediately. Cesareth looked at Marcus seriously. The Velari do not forget those who saved our gifted ones. We will always watch over you, Protector, whether you ask for it or not. The repairs took 2 weeks. The Velari engineers were thorough, replacing damaged systems, upgrading engines, installing military-grade shields and weapons. But they preserved the Wanderer's character, keeping Riley's modifications and personal touches. When they were done, the ship looked the same from the outside but ran like a dream. Riley spent every day overseeing the work, learning from the Velari engineers, adapting their techniques. Marcus watched her transform from exhausted mechanic, constantly fighting failing systems, to confident engineer working with top-tier equipment. On the last day of repairs, they stood together in the engine room. The reactor hummed with smooth power. The coolant systems ran quietly. Everything was perfect. This is incredible, Riley said, running her hand along a new power conduit. These systems are military-grade. The Wanderer can outrun almost anything now, and our shields can take hits that would have destroyed us before. You happy with it? Marcus asked. Happy doesn't cover it. I'm amazed, grateful, overwhelmed. She turned to face him. But mostly I'm grateful to you. To me? I didn't do anything. The Velari did all the work. You understood, Riley said softly. When Cesareth offered us a new ship you could have accepted? A brand new vessel, top of the line, no maintenance headaches. But you turned it down because you knew what the Wanderer means to me. You protected my home the same way you protect everything else. Marcus felt his face heat. It's what anyone would do. No, it's what you do. You see what matters to people and you protect it. Riley stepped closer. You saved Velari children because they mattered. You helped Dr. Okonkwo because history mattered. You rescued refugees because their lives mattered. And you kept my ship because you knew it mattered to me. Riley, I'm not finished. She took a deep breath. 3 years ago, I picked you up at a bar because I needed someone with connections to get through Velari space. I thought you'd be useful for one job and then leave. But you stayed. You became part of this crew, part of this family. You became important to me. Marcus's heart was beating faster. You're important to me too. I know. I can see it in how you check the ship every morning, making sure